Welcome to Tiempo Latino. This is a show for the Latino community in West Michigan. My name is Pablo Bello. I'm the host of Tiempo Latino, Latin Times for the English public. Tonight we're going to talk about executive action from President Obama. Well, before, let me introduce my guests. We have Raul Oropeza, Cyndi Hicks, and Richard Kessler, an expert of immigration laws for 32 years of experience on immigration law. And we're gonna let me talk to you a little bit about what is this executive action. On November 20th, the President Obama, Barack Obama, announced an executive action to give the parents of American citizens the parents who doesn't have documents, the legal residents, benefits. These benefits is work permit, stop the fear of being deported, and with this work permit you can get a Social Security and you can work and you can be without fear of being deported. Richard, a few minutes ago, talked to me and said the 46,000 people in Michigan, this is a rough estimate, can be benefit from this executive action. The announcement also include deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA. This is another benefit for the children. They came here when they were children. Of course, they were brought by their parents, and they can also get a work permit, a Social Security number, and being without fear of being deported. All this, thanks to the President Obama. And deferred action for parental accountability. This is for, as I mentioned already, this is for the parents of for parents that are undocumented here in the United States. On November 20th, the President announced this executive action. The community was very happy, the Latino community, the people who doesn't have documents, were very happy. And then a few weeks ago, Andrew Hannon, a judge from Brownsville, Texas, implement an injunction to stop this executive action, and it's being challenged by the federal government. And President Obama is promising to the people who would be benefit with this action. This executive action is constitutional and it can be stopped by this judge. So we're going to ask to Richard to tell us a little bit of history of DACA and DAPA. What are the requirements? Why this judge is doing this? Why the Republicans are opposed? Most of the Republicans are opposing DAPA and DACA. What are the reasons? A lot of undocumented immigrants are very excited about this executive action because they can get a work permit and work, something many Republicans agree before, and now they are against this executive action. There is a lot of misinformation. Many people think that this is an immigration reform. It's not an immigration reform. It's just a few steps to make life better for immigrants, undocumented immigrants. Well, Richard, can you tell us what's going on, Richard?
Yeah, that's a great introduction, Pablo. And basically what happened is finally on November 20th of last year, after, I'll be honest with you, a lot of us were, the pro-immigrant advocates were upset with President Obama because for a long time he'd been saying he was going to do something if Congress doesn't. And what you have to understand, this comes after many years and many attempts in Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform, broad immigration reform. Virtually everyone in Washington and throughout the United States, but let's just look at Congress people, agree that the immigration system we have right now is broken. And there's also been agreement almost by everybody, more than 75% in public opinion polls have showed that, for example, with the, whether it's 10 or 12 million, those are kind of the numbers people have thrown out of people that are not in the United States without documents, that we can't just deport the people. 75% of U.S. citizens say you can't do that. That's not going to work. It costs too much money. It would create too much havoc. It's too mean. It's not humane. There's many, many reasons why people are in agreement that this would never work. So what immigration advocates have tried to do is change the law to, one, deal with the people that are already here, whether it's 10 or 12 million people, so that they can be here legally, that they can pay taxes, so they can participate in the economic system at a full level, so there's no incentive to exploit them, to pay them less than other workers and hurt other U.S. citizens and lawful workers here in the United States. And since, actually, this goes back, I think the first very major attempt that was close to passing was 2006 with President Bush, where Congress proposed and came very close to passing a comprehensive immigration reform. Unfortunately, there weren't enough votes in the Senate to get it passed. At that time, there were a significant number of Republicans that were in favor of it, including President Bush. Over the years, the issue has become much more politicized on party lines, Pablo. And what we find right now is that virtually almost all Democrats support some form of significant comprehensive immigration reform. And in 2013, the Senate passed with the votes of all the Democrats and several Republicans a proposed bill 744, which would have been a broad comprehensive immigration reform, which would have dealt not only with the undocumented population, but also a lot of changes that we need to make the immigration law more reflective of our current economy, make it easier for high-tech people to come here, make it easier for students to become permanent resident, take away some of the bars and problems that people may have in families, making it difficult for them to stay together. So unfortunately, although there was the Democrats supported a few Republicans, the Republicans in the House of Representatives never allowed it to go to a vote. And we've seen the last 2 or 3 years that it's become increasingly Democrat versus Republican. And so finally what happens, Pablo, to make a long story long, as I'm fond of doing instead of making it short, in November of last year, November 20th, after the elections and after the Democrats kind of took a beating, President Obama finally announces, and this is after also years of very heightened and strong and severe enforcement of current immigration laws. Under President Obama's time, more than 2 million people have been deported, more than any other president. And it's kind of funny, there's a criticism by some anti-immigrant people that President Obama is somehow soft on immigration, and because his father was an immigrant, and because they want to buy off Latino votes and all these other crazy reasons. He's been soft on immigration when the reality is he's been one of the toughest presidents on immigration, and it's particularly in terms of people being deported and removed from the United States, including many millions of people who are parents or immediate relatives of U.S. citizens. So, you know, that's the first thing people should understand. Obama and the Department of Homeland Security under President Obama have not been soft on immigration enforcement. But anyways, finally President Obama, and this is due, and I'm glad to see Cyndi here and Raul and many people in the Grand Rapids area, and really millions of people across the country that have been pushing for the last few years for comprehensive immigration reform. both to help the immigrant communities themselves who are terrified, but also for the economy in general. All the studies have shown that this would bring billions of dollars into the economy in the next few years, and particularly helpful in states like Michigan. But anyways, the bottom line is President Obama finally in 2014, in November 20th, says we're going to do something. Congress is not going to, hasn't, and they've shown their inability to move forward on immigration. And so I'm going to initiate, implement what's called an executive action, which I believe as an immigration lawyer and somewhat of a constitutional expert on constitutional law, think is completely legal. It's under the parameters of the executive branch. Of course, we have 3 branches of government. And the executive is allowed to use his discretion in how they're going to enforce laws, and particularly how certain departments, in this case Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is going to enforce our current laws. And if we know we can't deport 12 million people, that's impossible, and we're not going to do that, and we haven't been able to do that. We need to do something to set priorities, and for the people who we know we're not going to deport because of certain criteria, and what the criteria the president decided on, Pablo, were people that had been here before 2010 and are the parents of either U.S. citizens or permanent residents, people that have green cards, parents of them. And if they've been here in 2010 and they don't have criminal backgrounds, or we're going to allow them to at least, and this is not a great benefit that they're talking about. It's a minimal benefit, which is consistent with the idea if we can't deport them, we might as well at least let them stay here lawfully with a work permit so that they can get Social Security numbers, they can properly pay taxes, they can properly pay into the Social Security system, so they get driver's license and people aren't driving without insurance and without driver's license, so that there's no incentive for people to go out and get false identification. And so the president says this, which is pretty much a no-brainer, which, as you mentioned earlier, Pablo, is interesting, because during the immigration debates in the House of Representatives, particularly and also in the Senate, there was a lot of criticism by Republicans that, well, maybe this program goes too far in terms of the Senate bill, which would have given eventually lawful permanent residence to immigrants. And most Republicans, including, for example, I'm going to call out Bill Heising, a local congressperson from the western area here, part of Wyoming, Jenison to the west, and including Howland and all the way up past Oceana County, who's told me many times, and Bill says, I like immigrants, my wife's an immigrant, my grandparents are immigrants, blah, blah, blah. And I talked to a lot of undocumented immigrants. He's told me this several times. And they all tell me all they want is a work permit and a Social Security card, Kessler. That's all they want. They don't care about citizenship later on. They don't care about permanent residence. That's all they want. Well, when President Obama in November says, okay, I'm going to give people a program, because Congress isn't, to allow them to get a work permit and be able to stay here with what they call protection. They don't need to fear deportation. Again, they still have to go through a security check. They can't have a criminal background. Eventually, they're going to have to pay taxes, etc. All hell breaks loose, basically. And the Republicans start, and it's all, Republicans, I'm going to say it's not all Republicans, but all the critics are Republicans almost of Obama on this, start screaming that this is, the worst thing to happen since, I don't know, Pearl Harbor or something like that. I think that's what it was almost close to that, or World War II. That's a representative from Iowa, Steve King, an ultra-conservative, ultra-immigrant critic, said something like that. And they started a strong attack in Congress where they tried to get the program stopped. And finally, just yesterday, it was interesting, the Republicans at the House finally had to give up and decide they were holding hostage the Department of Homeland Security budget. And they were trying to keep the budget, stop money from going to the Department of Homeland Security unless the president's executive actions, which you were talking about, were to be stopped. And so finally they understood that politically that was impossible. They could not get the Senate to go along with it, and that the Democrats in the Senate held firm and said, we're not going to support that nonsense. We need to have Department of Homeland Security, and we need to not mix these things, which is the president's executive actions with the budget of the Department of Homeland Security. So finally, yesterday, John Boehner had to give in and allow what they called a clean bill to go through, which was a bill which only talked about funding for Department of Homeland Security, didn't mention defunding or stopping President Obama's executive action. So that was a major defeat for many of the very anti-immigrant Republicans, although unfortunately they're not going away. But at the same time, there were legal attacks. And what several states, and it ended up being 26 states, started out with Texas and several southern states, and more states joined. Again, almost all states with Republican governors or Republican attorney generals, is that they tried to legally challenge this program. And so they did what's called forum shopping, Pablo, which is kind of an interesting idea a lot of people aren't aware of. But into the federal system, in cases where that affect the whole United States, you can kind of pick and choose where you're going to file it. So this program, what they're saying affects, or at least these 26 states that form part of the lawsuit, said, well, we're going to pick a place where we have a good chance of getting a judge that's sympathetic to us. And this isn't only done in these type of cases, but it tends to happen a lot in political cases. So they knew there was a judge, Andrew Hannon's his name, who's a long-time judge, and people should know federal judges don't have time limits. So there's been some federal judges that have been there 50 years, and I think this guy's been there almost 30 years, and he's in Brownsville, Texas, right on the border, and he's well known to be very anti-immigrant. He gives very, very harsh sentences to immigrants or people that violate the immigration laws, much higher than other judges throughout the country, and also been known to be very anti-Obama, and he's already made statements over the years against Obama, against Obama's ideas on immigration. So they picked this district knowing that they had a very high chance of getting this judge to initially hear the case, and lo and behold, he becomes the judge that hears the case. It's interesting, I will note that there was also a case that was filed in Washington, D.C. People may be familiar with a guy who hopefully is up there in the Hall of Shame, a guy named Joe Arpaio, who's the sheriff of Maricopa County in Arizona, who's very well known for being extremely anti-immigrant. He's the guy that would put immigrants on chain gangs and all kinds of other illegal things. It has been successfully sued for millions and millions of dollars for violating the civil rights, particularly of Latinos, both citizens and non-citizens. But he brought a lawsuit in Washington where the judge within 2 days threw it out and said, you don't have what's called legal standing. And that was also brought, I think, by some cities and counties in Arizona and other places. In other words, you don't have the legal position to bring this lawsuit because you're not really being affected by this directly. And I believe that was the correct decision. But at the same time, a lawsuit was brought by the state of Texas with other states in Brownsville, where they had this judge who was well known as anti-Obama, anti-immigrant. And what he did on February 17th, kind of an interesting date, because it was one day before part of this program was going to begin, which is the part, as you mentioned, there's a specific program called Deferred Action for childhood applicants, which has to do with people that came here under the age of 16 and then went to school in the United States. And again, and don't have criminal problems. So they were going to expand that definition, but before it had been limited to people that were here before 2007. They said, let's expand it to 2010 to make it the same limit, January 1st, 2010, the same date for the deferred action for the parents, so that there shouldn't be confusion, and will allow people, because now they've been here at least 5 years, that came before that date, and also took away what we called an artificial age limit. When this program, the deferred action, which is a program that was actually challenged legally, and the challenges were thrown out, the president was upheld, he said what he did was right, that was started in 2012 after people may remember something called the DREAM Act, which has been an act that they tried to get through Congress for over 10 years, again, with high public support. Pablo and Cyndi, I know, has been very active, and I know Raul knows about it, know a lot of young people that have benefited from the program. But anyway, so that program did pass. That program is going on. It's been very highly successful. It's very popular. It's called the DACA program. Anyway, so they were going to make these changes in DACA to make it, to include more people, make it more logical to have the same date. And the day before it was supposed to take effect, those changes changes on February 18th, the federal judge says, I'm going to suspend that program and issues what's called a temporary injunction or an order suspending the federal government from going forward with the DAPA program, the new program for parents, as well as the DACA program. So that happened in South Texas by this one federal judge. Interesting, it was kind of a narrow decision, although he could have said that the law was unconstitutional. He did not say that, at least so far, although the lawsuit is still going on. He basically said is that the president didn't follow something called the Administrative Procedures Act, which is very technical, but basically says when you do certain kind of rules, you have to go through this long process where you have to publish them in what's called the Federal Register, which is a special kind of newspaper that they publish in Washington, the government does every day, and you have to give people time to make comments, etc. And the response is that because this was only a discretionary program, not a federal rule, you didn't have to go through that. And that was upheld in the earlier DACA program. There's a similar challenge, and the federal courts had said this is not the type of federal rule that you have to go through this long process. But anyways, this judge says, well, maybe it is, so I'm going to stop it right now before it even gets started. And so what we have is a lot of people, in limbo out there creating a tremendous amount of confusion. I was going to ask Cyndi, she's going to be our designated reader today. There was an interesting and very meaningful editorial that was in the New York Times on Tuesday by a young woman. Her name is Eracenia Vasquez from Texas. And she talked about, and maybe Cyndi will help read this, a few paragraphs from her letter to the editor of the New York Times, where she gives some of the reasons the way she feels as a person who was looking so forward to this program.
She writes in her own words, I keep all these papers in a drawer next to my bed, so I will have easy access to them as soon as I need them. These are documents that were supposed to allow me to apply for a new program, Deferred Action for Parents of Americans. The documents that would protect me for a time from deportation and give me some relief from the constant fear that comes with life as an undocumented immigrant. In November, it seemed we would be able to move, however slowly, out of the margins. We would have temporary relief. I gathered my documents together and kept them safe. We were prepared. Then the judge put it all on hold. Everything we had been working toward, a break from life in the shadows, is now on pause, in limbo, maybe never to become a reality. I allowed myself to feel a little disappointed and a little bit sad, but I am not going to let myself feel defeated. I am still trying to organize people to go to meetings so that they can be ready when the program moves forward. I also posted this on my Facebook page. It moved me.
Well, let me take advantage of this editorial and as to Raul Oropeza. Raul is planning to apply for DAPA, right?
Yes.
The Deferred Action for Parental Accountability.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Raul, tell me, what does that mean for you, DAPA? What does this program means for you?
It's a very, very big opportunity for all the people who doesn't have a legal documents like me. So we're waiting for a long time this decision from President Obama. I think we are glad with this decision. So
yeah, we did this show a few minutes ago in Spanish for the Latino community, and Raul told me that he works in a factory,
yeah.
And he's planning. Hopefully, this judge is stopped. Andrew Hannon, this federal judge, conservative federal judge, anti-immigrant and anti-Obama. Hopefully, his appeal is rejected by another court, by a superior court, or in this case, the Supreme Court.
First, you would go to what's called the Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans, which is for certain states, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama. So that sort of goes first. And there's a slight chance, I don't think he'll change his mind, but the federal government filed an emergency petition, now it was about a week and a half ago, bringing other arguments to try to make him aware, look, you don't really understand what you're stopping, about how these people have been waiting so long, and especially trying to impress upon the judge that the case should go, the programs should go forward even while he goes through the rest of the case, and that it wasn't the type of case that the states were being so affected by that he needed to temporarily stop it. So there's a slight chance the judge himself could change his mind and say, why the case goes, because the case isn't finished, we're going to allow the program to be implemented, so that's a slight chance. And if not, then the court, Obama people have said they are appealing, actually filed the preliminary papers to appeal it to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And after that, there's probably a good chance it would end up at the United States Supreme Court in Washington sometime within the next year.
Well, as I was saying, thank you, Richard, for that information. I think this is very important for people. People think this is an immigration reform. There is no such immigration reform. This is just a few steps in the right direction. But as Raul was saying, he works in a factory, and when he gets this permission, he hasn't committed any crime. He hasn't been arrested for drunk driving. He is not hitting anybody, so he's not being accused of domestic violence. All these provisions are not allowing undocumented immigrants to apply for this executive
what Pablo's
action. Right?
saying basically is it's a pretty strict program. There's requirements. Everybody that applies will be screened. They'll have to get biometrics, that's fingerprints and pictures of their face, so they check any possible criminal convictions they've ever had. And people that have even many misdemeanors will be disqualified. So if you ever had, for example, even 20 years ago, driving under the influence of alcohol, the person will be denied. So it's a pretty strict program. There's a lot of, like Pablo saying, misinformation. People think, first of all, it's automatic citizenship. It's so far from that. I mean, I can't argue. All it does is give you a work permit. It doesn't give you any permanent status in the United States. And the other thing is, it's very strict about who's going to be included. If you've had any criminal background, again, even it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, a drunk driving, or a problem in the family that ended up in assault and battery with a family member, or domestic violence, or firearms. There's many, many crimes that will disqualify people, Pablo, but you're absolutely right. And there's a lot, first of all, people should know all it is just a temporary work permit for 3 years, the most minimal type of benefit that you can get. It doesn't allow you to get any public benefits. That's very important, because people think everybody's going to run and get public benefits. That's not the case. All you can get, the benefit is you could work legally in the United States.
Somebody's calling, right? No, somebody not is calling. Oh, I'm sorry, Richard. We are just asking to the public to call us. The area code is 616. The telephone is 459-4881. This is on the screen. If you have any questions, we have an expert in immigration laws, Richard Kessler. And if you want to ask some question to our guests, or to me, or to this program, you are welcome. Please be respectful, because we try to be respectful to you. And as I was saying, excuse me, Richard, for interrupting you. As I was saying, Raul Oropeza, he said he works in a factory, and if he gets this work permit, he would like to work in remodeling houses, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean for you, Raul? To be able to get a work permit and get a better job?
This is for me, the doors will open for all the people, especially, well, in this case for me, because I will have a more opportunity to give more, to give more things for my family or for my dream. Stay together with my kids, my wife. This is the big opportunity for me.
You've been in the United States for many years, right?
Yes, I did.
Like 20?
19 years.
19 years.
Mhm. 19
He has
years old.
children. You have how
Yeah,
many
I
children
have
you
two.
Two children. They were born here.
Yes, they.
American citizens.
Right. Yes.
And therefore he qualifies for this program. You see, he has been working hard. He doesn't have any. He doesn't commit any crime.
No.
You know, he's no a thief or he doesn't beat his wife. He doesn't drive drunk. So he's only asking for a chance to get a better life. You know, like many of us, like me. I'm an immigrant. We're just asking for a better life here in this country. And we have here Raul, who is one of the immigrants, undocumented immigrants, who is looking for a better opportunity. And I hope this judge, Andrew Hannon, is watching this show and change his
Back
mind.
home in Brownsville, watching the show.
Can I just mention one of the most...
Oh, we have Cyndi Hicks.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to mention, I think, one of the most important pieces of the DAPA, the Deferred Action for Parents of Americans, because that's what Raul is. He's a parent of an American citizen, is the relief from fear every day, from having to get in his car every single day and the worry that your children go through. I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about what that's like to, I mean, I know in my family, I'm on pins and needles every day when my spouse leaves, and you know, and I never know if he's gonna return or come back,
exactly.
or if like, is today gonna be the day that I have to pick up our whole house and businesses and just move somewhere else? Like, I don't know that at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, it's true. Well, every day I'm going to work. I'm just thinking before start driving, in my daughter, my son, and my wife. All the time I speak a little bit with God. I say, oh, please give me a chance to go to work and then get back to a home again. And
Is
it's every day. Yeah,
one
every
thing
day.
I wish
It's a
the
permanent fear, right? It's
Well,
like-
the permanent fear, and I wish the general public could at least understand that when they remove our family members, the ones of us that are left behind are going to end up on welfare, and then you can take care of us mentally and help try to stabilize us, because you know it's really traumatic to have somebody taken out of your home. And you know, and when it's the main wage earner, you know, the government's going to end up footing the bill for your spouse and kids because they're citizens and they're left behind. And I would really, really like the public to be more informed. You know, right now, you know, and even getting a work permit, people need to know you don't qualify for Obamacare, you don't qualify for food stamps, you don't qualify for government housing. And I am a housing professional, so I totally understand that, you know, when it comes to Section 8 or any type of government programs, like even college scholarships that are funded by the government, you are not eligible for that. And I think the public should be more aware that people are contributing to our society and not taking. In fact, they give way more in billions of dollars than what they take. So, you know, I'm sure Richard can, you know.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. The economic impact of even a small program like the President's executive actions. Economists immediately started studying the ramifications and found out, again, that the government would literally save or make billions of dollars probably in the first 3 years of this. This would generate over $40 billion in increased taxes. And also the program, let me also mention, pays for itself because people have to pay a fee of $485, which would cover all the costs. So it's not any burden to the taxpayers, but it's going to create billions of dollars. It's also going to create more jobs. What studies have shown, when immigrants start working more, and like what I will say, get better jobs, they start buying houses, get cars, start buying better cars, are able to function more regularly in the economy, everybody benefits. And Grand Rapids has been, I've talked this with Mayor Hartwell several times, has really benefited from the influx of immigrants. In 1990, Grand Rapids was losing population, and because of an increasing flow of immigrants, in many of them not documented, not because they don't want to be documented, let me mention. Raul wants to be documented. He's got a U.S. citizen wife, but the law doesn't allow him under the current program, as many other people suffer that same thing, that same problem, because the current law just doesn't allow for it. It's inflexible. But that the city of Grand Rapids, in terms of housing, in terms of Grand Rapids public schools, in terms of neighborhoods and neighborhood stores, has really grown because of the influx of immigrants. And not just Grand Rapids, this is repeated in Chicago and Detroit, in small cities in Michigan, Fenville and Hart and Shelby and Hartford, where if you talk to people about the influx of immigrants over the last 20 and 30 years, how that's kept these small towns, not just the big cities, alive. So it really is an issue that affects everybody. Not just the immigrant, him or herself, or obviously it affects their family, but it really helps the whole economy. So what we want people to understand that, well, again, first of all, this is not going to cost us any money. It's going to generate money. I mean, even most Republicans, and I've got a lot of friends that are Republicans, I don't happen to be one, but who harp on saying that, the economy is always the most important thing, and we got to grow business, and Democrats are bad on business, don't seem to get that this program of Obama's and a broader comprehensive immigration reform, which will also help in terms of immigrant investment and helping with the immigrant highly skilled people staying and coming to the United States, are going to help build our economy. But that seems to have gotten lost back in this. And the sad thing about this, I think this program has now been viewed as just a referendum on President Obama. Many people have forgotten about the people like Raul, like Cyndi, his family, that are going to be affected, and the economy as a whole that are going to be affected. When you ask people here in the general community and you say, what about your neighbor, Maria, or the guy you work with, Jose? Oh, he's a great guy. She's great people. We love them. They keep their house up so nice. They help shovel, our sidewalk. The little Mexican store across the street is a great place to go. There weren't any other stores here. So people, when they look at their own individual thing and the people they know, they all tell me, yeah, those people are great people. But then you ask them, should there be an opportunity, for them to at least get a work permit legal? Oh, Obama is breaking the law. So unfortunately, it's turned into this, sort of anti-Obama issue again, Pablo. And I think what we're trying to show people is that no, I'm not saying Obama's perfect. I'm not talking about Obama's foreign policies. We're not talking about Obama insurance or Affordable Care Act. We can talk about another show. I think that's all something mischaracterized. But we're talking about how this affects immigrants in the United States, and particularly in the Grand Rapids area, and it's only positive. I mean, there's not one iota, there's nothing about this particular program that's negative. I don't think it goes necessarily far enough, but the president has limitations what he can do, and without Congress, this is about the most that the president can do, and we appreciate what he's doing because it helps the economies, it helps immigrants, it helps families, and we urge people to learn a little bit more about it before your first reaction is, oh my God, this is Obama overstepping and the federal government overstepping. No. Find out what the program's about. Find out how really limited it is. Find out who's helped by it. Find out that there's, for example, all types of criminal safeguards involved in it. And then, you can come up with a fair opinion. And I think your fair opinion then has to be that this is a good program and we need it. So, again, I urge people to find out more about it before simply just giving knee-jerk reaction that this is something that, President Obama is overreaching.
Yes, I would like to add to that, Richard. For example, there are a lot of immigrants with special skills. For example, many of them are nurses, teachers. They have many professions, and if they get a work permit, they can contribute to society. You know, they can uplift the community. You know, the way of life are, in general, the whole community is going to be benefit if you allow immigrants to work with a work permit, not just doing menial jobs like many of them are doing right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it definitely grows the tax base. People are able to purchase higher priced homes and commercial businesses. And, I've been working in the real estate industry for over 13 years, and I understand the economic impacts that it has. And I also want to touch a little bit as the parent action leader and the PTO president of the largest school in the city, which has over 860 kids in a K through 8 program here that's dual immersion here in the city of Grand Rapids. We have a waiting list of people trying to get into that school, and people want their kids to learn 2 languages. And I can only speak from the fact that 90% are Spanish-speaking immigrants. And what it does to the whole classroom and how it affects our whole community, this last 2 weeks we've had 3 parents removed. So you have 3 kids in a school of 860, and in those classrooms, those children are traumatized. It disrupts learning. It puts more stress on the teachers and the other students. It was very difficult for my 5-year-old, a couple weeks ago to come home and knowing that her best friend, her daddy, was detained by immigration officials. These are 5-year-old little girls that need their daddies to raise them. They are the only people that can really, protect them. And I feel men have a right to protect their family and play an active role in their children's lives. And when we just remove people in such a dehumanizing way, that really tears apart our community fabric. And I really have just been on a conquest lately to reach out to the nonprofits that service our communities and really explain that this issue affects all of us. It's not just a few people. There is, we've already experienced, I'm sure Richard can attest to this, how many thousands of people have been removed out of our community in the last 2 years. So if it's 2 million people across the whole U.S., how many out of the West Michigan area have just been plucked out and removed? How many businesses have closed? How many houses went into foreclosure just because of people getting deported? Not to mention all the behavioral problems and kids, that pushes children into gangs, that pushes up the rates of graffiti. It pushes up, menial crimes, and kids get into trouble. They're traumatized. But Richard can probably talk a little bit about how many kids.
I would like to add, for example, like right now, a lot of undocumented immigrants are stopped by the police because they don't have driver's license, and the penalties are very high. It's like $500, $300, $600. That's a lot of money. This money can be spent in the community. Instead of paying fines for not having a driver's license, they can be spent this money going to a restaurant, buying clothes, buying more food, creating a better way of life for the whole community. Mm-hmm. What were you saying, Richard?
Oh, how many people?
I don't know the exact number, but in the state of Michigan, over the past 2 years, there's been more than 25,000 people that have been removed or deported from the state of Michigan. And it includes some people that were caught at the borders or at the airport, but most people had already been living here in the state of Michigan. So that's a significant amount of people that are being deported, and most of them have families in the United States, and the majority of those are people that have not committed crimes. The worst crimes, generally most common, are misdemeanors, many times driving-related crimes, or many of them haven't committed any crimes. So what we're doing is we're breaking up our families, causing a lot of social, societal complications, as Cindy's put, both in terms of more cost for the government to maintain the rest of the family, in terms of possibly problems in the schools and problems with crime among the children and the family members that stay here. And most of these people, again, haven't committed any crimes more serious than a misdemeanor, which, again, they're paying for, but they're then paid for doubly because they're being deported from the United States. And we are asking people, again, to call in 459-48881. You might not, be in agreement. You might say we're these open border freaks, and we're not in touch with reality. Call us up and tell us that, right, Pablo? But we do want people to think about, that's the most important thing, at least think about these issues. Become informed. Don't just listen to what, Fox TV, I shouldn't tell you, that's one of your big competitors, right? Or even CNN.
Watch CTV, huh?
Or whatever, yeah, watch CTV.
And also, let's remember that this is a nation of immigrants, right?
Absolutely. Look at the statute.
If you are here, it's because your parents practice immigration,
Or
Right.
your grandparents.
or your grandparents,
Right, yeah.
or your
And we can't forget about the
great-grandparents,
people who were forced here. Like there were immigrants that were
that came enslaved
forced
to the
here,
United States, too.
because the immigrants here brought them here.
Yeah,
We-
we have a lot of Dutch here, no? The Dutch are coming from Holland.
And they
in
came
Europe.
for the same reasons, economic reasons, and freedom and religious freedom. The same reason that people are coming to the United States today are for economic opportunities that they don't have in their country, or freedom. Increasingly, we see people coming from Mexico and Central America because of the violence there, which, interesting, this is a separate program you can do it,
Yes.
as the violence that's created, and most of it caused, a lot of it caused by the current drug laws that we have. I would urge you, we can do it. You haven't done that program yet, Pablo? We can talk a little bit about that some other day, about
Yes.
the violence in Mexico and Central America and South America that's caused by these terrible drug cartels, who are the only reason they're in business, and governments that are either controlled by them or tolerate them in Mexico and Central America. And it's all because of the U.S. Quote, war on drugs and U.S. drug policies. But it's all kind of global issues that are all impacted here, Pablo. It's not as simple, and there's not one simple solution, but we know one of the solutions is let's be realistic and deal with people that are already here, that have come here to try to help themselves and their families, and let's allow them, like Raul said, to be able to open their doors, get out of the shadows, not have to worry, like Cindy said, that they're going to get pulled over, or their mother or father is going to get arrested and deported in the next few days simply because they're going off to work. So, again, we urge people, and hopefully if you got any questions or comments, to call in, right, Pablo?
Yes, and
459-4881, give us your perspective or ask a question about this, because it is a very important issue, and we hate to see it turn into such a political, partisan issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. Like you said, we're a nation of immigrants, except for the Native Americans, and if they had closed their door, nobody else would be here. But, fortunately for most of us, they didn't close the door, and, the United States over many, many years has encouraged immigration, and we need to continue to encourage immigration. We shouldn't view it as a threat or as a negativity. People are coming here the same reason same reason I know my grandparents came here to escape anti-Semitism and possible death in Europe, the same reason that for economic reasons that many people came here, because they couldn't improve their living conditions in whether it was Europe or the Caribbean or Asia. And they have the opportunities that we have in the United States. And we should, instead of making things more difficult for people that want to, like Cindy said, grow our economy, we ought to be encouraging that. So.
Definitely.
Yes, and one of the topics that I would like to talk about, and maybe in next show, is about the prisons for
That's
immigrants.
another issue, yeah.
This is horrible. They are keeping immigrants in these detention centers, and they are just in horrible conditions. They have children, they have women, they have men. they can even go out because these.
In almost all the Western countries has been studied, Pablo, yeah, the Western European countries as well as Canada and Australia, when somebody is, involved in an immigration situation where they said this person didn't come to their country properly, either they came, through some type of unauthorized means in boats to Europe or Australia, or they came across the borders from Mexico or from the South, the people are not treated the way they are in the United, or by airplane and ask for refugee status. Most of the time, they're detained and just either and released in a very short period of time, check to see that they're not criminal risk, and they're allowed to go into the community, stay with their relatives, instead of paying $135 to $150 a day by the U.S. taxpayer, because they're not criminal risk. Or if they are detained, and like they sometimes are in Kansas, but they're detained in these centers that are more like dormitories. They're not police places. They can come and go, etc. And that's the way it should be. They should not be treated like criminals. But we've done that. We've almost criminalized or become a great part of this kind of what they call the jail industrial complex in the United States. Part is our general use of jails and prisons to warehouse people, which isn't done at any level comparable as anywhere again in the Western world. And that's not only for people that have been found guilty of criminal violations, but in the immigration context, these people who haven't violated any laws, simply they don't have the proper immigration documents, or even they came here properly, but they asked not to be returned to their country because they could be persecuted. And in many, many cases, they're held and treated. I mean, I go to the detention center in Battle Creek, which is the regular Battle Creek Calhoun County Jail, where people held the same as any prisoners. There's a young man there from Honduras and he had, usually you don't have foot chains, but they have the same orange suits, they eat the same food, they're in the same cells, the same rules, and he had these leg chains on, and I asked the young man, how come they put leg? Oh, because I got tired of, they got mad, they didn't like the way I made my bed, and so they said I was being disobedient, and they put leg chains on him. So this kid who's violated no criminal laws, simply they're waiting to try to remove him because he didn't come to the United States properly, is now in this jail cell and with chains on his legs because they don't like the way he made his bed, violating their policies where they treat him as if he'd been convicted of some type of serious crime. So that's a real good point. Sometime I'd love to come back to a program where we could talk about, and in Michigan we don't have them, but in Texas and in California they have these mega private immigration jails that house thousands of people that are all money makers. There's a big one in Texas that even the United States government has found in violation of most of its rules, but they continue to send people there. They continue to give them contracts because they don't want to make the company mad at them or something, and because also many of them have contributed to the political campaigns of many politicians. So that's a great issue to talk about, the way we warehouse people, or not jail people for immigration situations when they haven't committed or been found guilty of committing any crimes.
It's just a presumption of guilt, without even giving someone a fair trial or a judge.
Just to be here without permission is not, or to have overstayed your visa is not a criminal case. It's not something you can go to prison or jail for, but unfortunately the way our system is, many times the people are held in these detention centers, and sometimes for many months or years.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to our original topic,
Yeah, we got way 180 degrees.
Immigration executive action.
I do want to let you know that there's a community meeting March 17th at Southwest Community Campus, sponsored by our PTO. We felt it was very important to continuously educate the public about this very topic, so people aren't so fearful, so they don't give up hope. So we did invite Richard to come and speak for 1 hour, 5:30 to 6:30. Please come with your questions, come with an open mind to learn, leave your anxiety at the door, and we want to inspire hope, the esperanza in su corazón, that's so important. Go ahead, Pablo.
Raul, would you like to to say something to the public that's watching this show?
Oh, yes. Oh, well, people, oh, don't stop it, please. Oh, let's continue. Let's keep it esperance, hope.
The hope?
Oh, and let's go in. Let's do this. Let's do this. Yeah.
Yes.
And thanks, President Obama, too. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something? We had 2 minutes, Richard.
Oh, I'll never say no. I'm a good lawyer. I can always talk for a long time, and 2 minutes is nothing, right, Pablo? But I really want to emphasize to people that it really is, to me, it's a terrible shame that when finally President Obama does something, after years of trying to do something cooperatively with Congress, and their inaction and the Congress inability to do something, although when you ask all the senators and Congress people, including the Republicans, what's going on with the immigration system, they all tell you it's broken, but yet they don't want to pass any laws to change it. And then when the president finally does something which is very basic, it's not a dramatic change, it's not giving citizenship, it doesn't open up the immigration jails, it doesn't open up the borders, it has nothing to do with new people coming into the United States. When he does something as minimal as that, people go crazy, or at least many Republicans do, and they challenge him legally. They go and try to find the best forms to try to shut the program down. They find judges that are historically anti-immigrant like this judge and try to use them to politicize the issue instead of looking at just the legal issues. And they try to cut funding to the Department of Homeland Security, which is some other day we can talk, maybe is not such a bad idea, although I don't think many Republicans want to do that. But it just shows how desperate they're willing to go over the cliff to stop this program when virtually everyone is in agreement that the people that are already here cannot be deported. It's not economically feasible. It's not practical. So let's bring them into the mainstream. Let's let them join us and have legal documentation so they can work legally and have Social Security cards and drive. So,
Thank you very much. My name is Pablo Bello. This is Tiempo Latino. And thank you, Raul.
Thank you so much, Pablo.
Cyndi. And thank you, Richard.
thank all of you.
How about a union class? Yay!
Bravo.